Yeah, we have somebody here already. What do you know? It's just water. Just water. Well, since it seems that we're up and running, I'll just go ahead and get started. I don't anticipate many people being here this evening. Uh, Tonight is the 6th of December, 2022. I'm Roy Potter, and as usual, when these things happen, hello everyone as you come in, wherever you're coming from. I was already in bed. I was there and I was trying to get the La La Land. And as these things occur every once in a while, I had this thing keep saying, you got to get up and talk about this. Uh, you haven't done this in a while. Hasn't been that long, but hi, Thailand even. Oh my goodness. All right, say hi to Brian Berletic for me if you know who he is. Uh, Daytona Beach. Oh man, I wish I were there right now. I'll tell you what, it's cold as all get out here, snow and everything else, wind. Anyway, so as I was saying, I was laying there and okay, I'll get up and do it. And we're not going to talk about politics or military tonight. The world situation. You can get that just about everywhere, and of course, I talk about it quite a bit. You're in Galveston, Texas. Windows open, good for you. So, let me see if I can give some background on why I have to do this or why I feel like I have to do it. I had a discussion with my older son Jeremy the other day, and he is always talking about that God wants us to participate. That he's a firm believer in a form of the pre-existence. In other words, he's not Mormon, but a form that we existed prior to here in some way, shape, or form, very similar to what we are here. But that in order to come to this world, God, our Father, said, "Look, I've got this little school I want you to go to, and I want you to help me do my work." Because that's really what we are. We are the hand of God, if we just understood that. And he said, I want you to do something for me. And Jeremy made it very simple. And I think he got this from Dr. Michael Heiser, actually. But, which is good. I mean, that's fine. But Jeremy kind of expanded on it for me. And I haven't seen Michael Heiser's presentation on this, but I'm going to go a little different direction, obviously. But he said, what it is God wants you to participate. He wants you to become part of what's going on here. He wants you to take part in what he's doing. And so he gives you a little piece, sort of like, all the world's a stage and we all play a part, kind of like that, but more from a spiritual point of view for our growth and our development, our experience. Be that as it may, so I was contemplating some of these things as I often do, and then I came up with this that I needed to discuss this. Let me read to you. You'll notice up here I say, what is a covenant? What is covenant? We're going to talk about that. You might say, well, Roy, everybody knows what a covenant is. Well, this is one of the reasons why I have a problem with the Greek scriptures in the New Testament. Anytime you go from an original language like Hebrew or from the culture that where Hebrew was spoken, and you try to go into another language, you lose something in the translation always, especially when you don't understand the cultural differences. And I've tried to make this point so often in my presentations that the Greek scriptures, as good as they may be, they can't really definitively bring the concepts from the Hebraic thought from the original Israelites into the Greek world. The Greek world was quite a bit different than the Israelites and the Old Testament concepts. Not that and everybody tries to say, well, it's a new covenant, and so the Greek is finite. And Catholics are really wound up into thinking that Latin is the sacred language, and that's from the Roman Empire, which was one of the most wicked, evil things on the face of the earth. So, which has come down to us in our present day. I mean, it's nice to talk in that language, but if you're really going to talk about getting back to the basics, you really need to get to the Hebrew. You even have to go back beyond the Greek. Michael Heiser made a point of that also when he was talking about some of the scriptures in Romans, and I put it up in the community tab here not too long ago on a post where he made some issues about the defective Greek, talking about the fall as compared to death and those types of things. And I'm not going to get into that here, but it's just to point out that the trying to take these concepts into another language in a different culture, the Hellenized world, is just is it's a monumental task, and it can't be done very well. I was going to use kind of like a Spanish word tonight to kind of explain it. I was going to use burrito, and then I realized, well, burrito really isn't original Mexican. It really isn't. I think that's something that came about here in the United States. But let's just use that let's use a similar word. Let's use empanada, I guess, is a good one. They write that down in Spanish, and then you try to describe it in the English. What do you call it? You see what I'm saying here? How do you describe? What word do you choose to try to describe it? And usually, it's not going to be something. Yeah, what's this now? There's a good one there. Yeah, chimichanga. All those. That's a good example. How do you take that word and then use something in English to describe it where it'll convey something of the same nature? And it's not easy, and that's a real problem with the Greek. Extremely difficult. And then you take that problem and then you move it on into Latin and to English, Spanish, German, whatever, and that's why I say you can't say that the Bible has no mistakes in it. I mean, now, yeah, God can talk to you through those things. I understand that. But we lose the original meaning. And so that's why I decided to do this tonight. And hopefully the internet, I'm late enough here, and I hope I'm not walking on Monty or anybody else. But like I said, when I'm asleep and I'm trying to get to sleep and this thing keeps knocking on my head, I go, okay, I'll get up and do it. All right. So we're going to talk about what covenant means. And I saw some people say, well, it means agreement. Well, not really. Not really. And we're going to talk about that here in detail. And I think you'll find this very interesting, actually. All right, so let's start off with Revelation 7:14. I'm going to read that. Revelation chapter 7, verse 14. we'll start in verse 13, okay? By the way, this is a spiritual discussion, right? So, chapter 7 of Revelation, starting at verse 13, we're going to read through, let's read through 15. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, these are they, listen very carefully, which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore, I'm going on to 15. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell amongst them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. In other words, these are people who've gone through some trials. These are people that have participated. Participated in what? When I started out my Hebrew classes, I don't know if it was one of the first classes, but I've often talked about Bereshit, which is the first word in the Hebrew Bible. And that the very first letter, the bait, means home. So it's talking about our home. Bereshit that's the first thing there. Now, it's actually a preposition in the Hebrew. It means in. But when you break it down, as I've often said in Notaricon, in other words, the meanings of each of the individual letters, Bereit means home. So the whole story of creation and the history and all of that is about our home. This is our home, our habitation. So, getting back to this situation where we come to this earth and we wonder what our purpose is, and we're trying to, if we're honest with ourselves and we're not one of the seed of the fallen angels, right? We want to do well and we don't always know how to. Sometimes we just fall into it, other times we struggle or we think we are. And then comes up the question of faith and belief and all that. Well, there's a word that is constantly used in the scriptures talking about God's dealing with his children. And it's called covenant. That's how it's translated as covenant, which somebody just pointed out means agreement. And kind of, but not exactly actually. So let's break it down and see what's going on here. I think you're going to be fascinated by this. I'm going to tell you what this particular word here means when you break it down in the Notaricon at the end of our discussion. Remind me to do that. So Revelation 7:14 says, "These are they who are wearing these white robes because they washed them in the blood of the Lamb, because they went through, they participated in testing, tribulation, the stage." And the word for covenant in Hebrew is this one right here, brit. And it's beit, resh, yod, tav. Like I said, I'm going to come back and I'm going to break that down in Notaricon at the end of this. And it's probably going to floor a lot of you because it goes back to Bereshit in Genesis, where I told you that the word Bereshit, when you spell it out and use the meaning of each letter in the word, it's the story of the salvation of mankind. I've explained that before. You can go back and look at that in my religion series if you like. And I'll add this video to the religion series. So this is the word for covenant. Well, you notice I say right here, we participate. I just read Revelation 7:14, going through this trial, this tribulation. We take part in going through this trial. You can also say it's choosing, it's manifesting. And it's related to some other words. This is 1285 in Strong's. It's related to 1254, bara, which means create. 1262, bara, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I'm going to read these to you. And barar, 1305. So those of you who have Strong's, you might want to pick this up and follow along with me here real quick. Let's start off with 1285, which is the word for covenant. 1285 in Strong's, in the Hebrew side. 1285. Berit. It's from 1262 in the sense of cutting. Cutting. Like 1254, and I'm going to get to 1254 here in a minute. It says here a compact. And listen, remember, some time ago I explained that covenant means cut the flesh, cut the meat, which is the title of this video. Cut the meat. And people are saying, huh? Are you talking about sex again? Sorry. Hopefully we don't do that. I mean, cut the meat in that regard. In the Hebrew, covenant means cut the meat. It's an agreement that you cut the meat and you're sharing it with somebody. In this case, the other person to the covenant, to the agreement. So you cut the meat. So listen to what it says here. And this is why I say it's not quite what most people think. So let's read it again. 1285. This is what it says. In the sense of cutting, a compact, because made by passing between pieces of flesh, pieces of meat. Confederacy, covenant, league. So what they would do in the ancient times is they would sit there, and you see this all the time. They make an agreement and they take a sacrifice and they cut it up and they share it. And a part goes to God, usually the fat, right? Okay. That's the first thing I want to show you. So there's an act of something happening here, right? something occurs. There's an agreement and something occurs. In this case, the cutting of the meat. Let's go and look up some other words here real quick. Let's go ahead and go to 1254. In 1254, again, I'm on the Hebrew side of Strong's. 1254 will show you that it's bara, all right? And you see that as, the first time you see it is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, right? When it says, Bereshit bara, right? Elohim et, okay, bara means create. And let's see what it says. To create, to cut down, select, feed. Remember, cut the meat, feed. Choose. I have that up here, don't I? Create, cut down, dispatch, do, make. It's talking about doing things, not just belief. Doing something. As James said, faith without works is dead. You have to do something. You have to participate, because that's what a covenant is. It's an action. Let's go to 1262. This is where it gets interesting. 1262 is bara, okay? And it says this, to select. Oh, we're going to choose again. Choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. There's an action that's required. You are required to act, to participate. To feed, to render clear, choose, eat, manifest. Isn't this interesting? Let's go to 1262. All of these are related. 1262. No, that's just where we were. I'm sorry. 1262 we did just now. Did I skip one? No, that's right. 1262 is the one that we just did. And now we're going to go to 1305. 1305 is barar. Again, all of these are related. In barar, this is what it says. Clarify, brighten, examine, select, make bright. What did Revelation just say? These are they whose robes were washed white, became bright in the blood of the Lamb. Choice, chosen, cleanse, be clean. Clearly, an important word here, polished. Polished. Some of you may remember I saw this from a lady on YouTube. She gave a really good presentation. I talked about it once, about what a silversmith does. And it's interesting that the analogy is used in the scriptures as well. The silversmith, how does he know when the silver is pure? Does anybody know? Sorry about that. Does anybody know how the silversmith knows when he's got a pure piece of silver, when he's working with it, when he's got it down, he's melting it down and all that? I'll just speed to this. He knows because he can see his image in it. It reflects his image. He can see himself in the silver. So in the same way, when God says that he puts us through a refining fire, he knows when we're ready, when we've been purified, because we reflect his image. Isn't that beautiful? Well, that's what's going on here, okay, in Barar. So let's keep reading this, because I think it's very important. Polished, purify, purge out. Think tribulation, think trials, think participate here, and try to remain faithful. Is everybody still here, or did I lose the connection? Maybe you can just give me a heads up here. Tell me if we're still running. The chat looks like it kind of slowed down. I'm hoping that we're still up. Okay. All right. So how do we participate? What is going on here? And what is our participation involving? Well, as I explained at the beginning, Jeremy pointed out that, It might be that some of us just have to come here and just speak. Make sure that people understand our point of view, because that's all part of the process. It might be, as he said, as simple as God says, you know, I need you to go open the door for this elderly lady when she comes, because she's not going to be able to. So will you do that for me? And okay, yeah, that's what I'll do. I make an agreement. Okay, I'm going to manifest some behavior, right? And then Jeremy says, and there are others who will have to become major preachers of the word. Then there are others who will have to protect others, be defenders of the innocent. And then it comes to the point where those who may suffer for the truth's sake. You remember Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. Take up your cross. Well, what's the cross? It's your tribulation. It's your trial. And this is where I'm going to end this video. Right here is the entire story. Let me get my pointer. I always forget to get my pointer. Again, as I said, I'm going to take this word apart that means covenant. Cutting the meat, participating, dividing it, agreeing, manifesting, doing something. Using the Notaricon, we're going to break this word down. Beit, Resh, Yod, Tav. Beit is home, house. Resh is head. Yod is hand or son. Tav is cross. What is the ultimate covenant? The ultimate covenant, as I've said, God asks you to do something here. He asks you to stand in this trial, in this tribulation. And we all do it at varying degrees. Some just opening a door for a little lady. Others may have to give up their lives. Watch this. House, head. The head of the house has his son on the cross. Did you see that? Is this getting across? I hope it just didn't die. It looks like we are going. Okay, good. Do you see why you can't transfer this concept in Hebrew into the Greek in any meaningful way, and certainly not into the English? Because the plan of salvation is in the word covenant. We all agree to go through this life, this tribulation. We'll have a cross to bear. None of us are going to get away without bearing some kind of a cross in our lives. But there's a reward for that. And if you go through this process, that God, the head of the house, has his son placed upon a cross, that's the ultimate covenant, right? As we understand it. But we all do lesser portions of that to some extent. We may not take on a lot of other people's problems, but just our own problems are sometimes going to be enough for us. But because we're willing, because our former life wasn't like this. Our former life was, you want a piece of fruit, you just go out and pick it. You know, you want to go down and get some water, you go down to the pure stream or the pure lake or what. I mean, it really wasn't Eden. We didn't know what it was like to really struggle. Well, this is the place where we learn about that. And as we agree to do it, it doesn't matter whether it's some lowly aborigine in Australia who's never heard of Jesus Christ, or someone who studies Hebrew and understands a lot of the mysteries. We're all going to take part. We're all going to participate. We're all going to choose. We're all going to manifest this tribulation. These are they who went through great tribulation. And it's right in the word covenant. And of course, for those of you who are Christians, who understand that sacrifice as you understand it that Jesus made, again, in the word covenant is the actual concept of Jesus going to the cross. Again, the head of the house, Reish, head, Bra, bait rather, head of the house, has his son, the Yod, go to the cross. Isn't that beautiful? You can't trust the Greek. Okay, you can't. And you certainly can't trust the English to give you these insights into the really beautiful things about the Hebrew scriptures. Again, even in the Hebrew, there are mistakes because despite what people say, there were those who had agendas or they're trying to send messages or whatever. So you have to balance all of these things. Again, you're going through tribulation. Even the Word of God, you have to be able to rightly divide it. What did I just say? I divided it by Notaricon. I divided it up, that word, into each letter and examined it to see what other things are being revealed in the Word. I won't take up any more of your time tonight. I know it's late. This will be up on the religion series, but I had to bring this information to you. Consider what I've told you about. If you have a strong, look these things up, these words. 1285 for Brit, which is covenant. 1254, which is bara, which is create. Again, bara, 1262, same concept. And then 1305, barar, about dividing the meat, cutting the meat. I wasn't kidding when I told you this about a month or two ago. And now I've named this video that because I figure it'll get attention. You know, no, I'm not going to tell the joke. If any of you watched Hollywood Squares and you know about Paul Lynde, he talked about something very similar to this, but it wasn't in the concept of this spiritual discussion, but it was funny nonetheless. But anyway, so that's my presentation for the night. It's not very long. It's been about 30 minutes, but I think you now should see why these things are so important to try to understand and why knowing these types of things have helped me to understand more about the scriptures and what they say. And while I've ended on that, again, I wanted to talk about just for a second my last video that I did where I was talking about women and you know that whole situation there, and I got pretty emotional, and it's because we are being attacked at our most important levels, and frankly I feel a little helpless about it, and I know it's in God's hands, but still we're required to participate in some way, shape, or form. We're supposed to stand up to this evil, and I just don't see it happening at the amount that it needs to. And I know a lot of you really question my background and all that, and all I'm going to say about that is, because I saw some comments about it, don't make light of that which you do not understand. All right? I've done this work. Don't make light of what you don't understand. I'm not trying to convince you that you have to live a certain way. You certainly don't have to pick the lifestyle that I did. By the way, again, I'm not in it anymore, okay? As I kind of hinted at, well, I've talked about it before. My stand on that devastated my family and friends and some others, not because they didn't like it, but because of the persecutions that followed and the really nasty things that occurred, which interestingly aren't really happening to the Lima Bravo Golf Tango people. You know, they get a pass. I'm not saying that they haven't been maybe discriminated against at some point, but nothing like what my family and my and myself went through. Okay, and certainly they wouldn't be going through that now. They're considered and I'm not trying to divide anybody. It's just the truth, right? You know, none of the patriarchs were condemned because of their marriage arrangements, but Sodom and Gomorrah was burned to the ground. Okay, so we've upended the truth, and that hurts me. I see that, and it hurts me. It's not just what I went through, but I see where mankind has chosen the wrong path, or at least much of them. Certainly, our leaders. You know, the fish rots from the head down. Hey, hi Felicia, how you doing? So hopefully you like this, Felicia. I think you'll like this one if you haven't been here the whole time. So I just wanted to bring that up, how all of this over the last little while has really weighed down on me, and I've had losses in my family and amongst my friends because of the extent treatment that now turned on them and made them sick, very very much so, uh, to death even. And I know this was all planned, and population control that might get me thrown off. um, oh, you just ended. I'm sorry, Felicia. I was hoping I didn't walk on you this late. That's kind of why I waited. Plus, the internet's a little easier for me to use at this time. So hopefully, I didn't walk over your presentation and your live stream too badly. But I think you'll like this, Felicia. I think you'll like it. So, getting back on the other deal, I realize that uh, population, which if you look at history, I don't know if you all know, but I am a trained historian, and my book, the things I've written about the developments of Christianity and ancient writings and things. This thing that the evil people do about saying that there are too many people, the population control has been the mantra of the evil ones for millennia, and it's no different today. And they're using that along with the whole carbon nonsense and all that to try to destroy you. We're going through great tribulation. We're conducting our participation to stand up against evil as an experience for us. And I made my contribution to the children of the world. I brought in children with the help of several really nice women, and I'm not. I, some people say, "Well, Roy, you shouldn't be. You show pride in that. You're proud." No, not in the sense that most people would consider pride. It's like I said in my video the other night. God used my immaturity to honor his laws and to bring them forth so that he could judge those who fought against it. I was honored, even in my weakness, to stand for truth. And I know a lot of you won't understand that. I don't expect you to, and I'm not telling you, again, that you have to do the same thing. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that don't hastily judge the patriarchs of the Old Testament, and it was not done away. The concept of having these great posterities was not done away in the New Testament. And I just pointed out one of the reasons why, because the transfer of the Hebraic ideas. Remember, I've often said that Hebrew is circular, Middle Eastern thought is circular, Western thought and Hellenized thought is linear. You can't put a square peg in a round hole, vice versa. So there are disconnects between the cultures. The language is the culture. And when you try to change from one culture to another, you're actually and from one language to another, you're actually changing from one culture to another. And sometimes you don't understand the deeper meanings or even the simple meanings, as I pointed out a few minutes ago with some Spanish food, and then trying to describe it in English. They come up with a word that would work. And sometimes you have to use the same word. It's called transliteration. And that's, for instance, that's used for those of you who read the scriptures. The word Selah, Selah, that you often see in the Old Testament. Well, they don't know what it means, so they just transliterate it into English. They don't really know what Selah means. I mean, they guess, but they've never really translated it. And that's just one example. All right? All right, everybody. That's all I've got. I'll let you go. But I wanted to show this to you tonight and explain a little bit about my video from the other night. And again, I'll end on saying, for those of you, for instance, one person said, "Well, no, the old God permitted the men to do what they did in the Old Testament because that was their tradition, but now all men are called to repentance." Well, Sodom and Gomorrah had their own tradition, and God didn't permit that. And I pointed out also, and I know I harp on these things, but again, it's because of these problems with moving into the Hellenized world, which is what happened in the first and second centuries. To cover all this, as I explained in my book, The Crimson Thread, you have these situations where, for instance, God told Hosea to marry that woman Gomer. You had the situation where, after David took Bathsheba unlawfully, God said, "Why did you do that? If you'd I gave you all of Saul's wives. If you had wanted more, I would have given you more." So this idea that God was just, pandering to their traditions isn't true. All right. Yeah, no, Carol Reed, I'm not on at a certain time. I try to get on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but then I still walk over good friends like Felicia. I try not to. So anyway, uh, again, they're trying to destroy us. They're trying to depopulate us, and that's been the method since day one. Claim that there are too many of us. They've lied about that, and they've killed us off by the millions and billions because they are the enemy. No, you are fine, my dear. Oh, thank you, Felicia. I appreciate that. And again, I apologize for getting so emotional the other night, but I do take these things deeply to heart. And people that I don't mind getting attacked myself. I can handle it. But what you're doing is, when you don't understand something and you make light of it, you're really hurting yourself and you're contributing to the downfall of mankind. If you don't understand something, reserve judgment. At least don't, attack somebody like me for trying to show you something that you don't understand. You all have a great night. We'll talk to you later. Maybe we'll have a live stream on all of this where we can do some discussion. Okay? All right. We'll see you later. Out here for now.